Welcome to our YouTube channel. Today, we will dive into a heartfelt and meaningful story, offering profound lessons you won't want to miss. Stay with us until the end of the video to experience exciting surprises and inspiring messages. If you're ready, let's get started. In just over a year, the Dalton gang had robbed 4 trains at gunpoint, leaving a trail of terror in their wake. Now, the infamous Dalton brothers and their accomplices were plotting something even more daring. Riding into the town of Coffeyville, they hitched their horses, armed themselves with rifles, and boldly crossed the street toward their targets, the Canton Bank and the First National Bank. Their audacious plan was to rob both banks simultaneously. However, their arrival hadn't gone unnoticed. While the gang forced bankers to open the safes, townspeople outside prepared an ambush, erupting into a fierce gunfight. Pinned down, 2 of the bandits fled the First National Bank with $20,000 in cash and gold, while the others emerged from Canton Bank. In the chaos, several townsfolk were shot, but the gang's escape was short-lived. All 5 bandits fell under a hail of bullets in a nearby alley. Emmett Dalton, the sole survivor, was gravely injured and taken into custody. This bloody showdown marked the end of the Dalton gang, or so it seemed. Yet, their reign of terror had extended beyond those 5 members. Bill Dalton, another brother, and a network of criminals, bootleggers, bandits, and killers, remained at large, perpetuating the chaos. In the Old West, where men could vanish without a trace, desperate lawmen often sought help outside the bounds of official procedures. They turned to gunslingers motivated by the promise of rewards. For reasons that remain elusive, many are drawn to these untamed parts of history, captivated by their raw and compelling nature. It's perhaps the same pull that draws fans to games like Warhammer 40,000 Tacticus, a strategic and action-packed mobile experience set in the grimdark future of the Warhammer 40,000 universe. With over 70 legendary champions from 17 factions, the game offers fast-paced battles and dynamic gameplay, making it a must-try for fans of tactical challenges. Meanwhile, Frank Canton, Undersheriff of Pawnee County and Deputy U.S. Marshal, was hot on the trail of the Dalton gang. Canton was no saint. Whispers of his brutality and fondness for alcohol cast a shadow over his badge. Still, he pursued his duties with determination. After the Coffeyville massacre, he tracked the gang's remnants, now led by Bill Doolin and another Dalton brother. In 1893, the gang ambushed and killed 3 U.S. Marshals, robbed a bank in Pawnee, and briefly kidnapped a cashier. Their crimes escalated, prompting calls for martial law, which went unheeded. By June 1894, the last Dalton brother was killed, and the West momentarily breathed a sigh of relief, though Canton withheld his celebrations. Under Bill Doolin's leadership, the gang, now known as the Wild Bunch, became even more dangerous, with infamous outlaws like Cockeyed Charlie Pierce and Dynamite Dick Clifton joining their ranks. Each crime added to the bounty on their heads, which ranged from $1,000 to $3,000, dead or alive. Canton, desperate to dismantle the gang, struck an uneasy deal with the Dunn brothers, notorious cattle rustlers with ties to the Wild Bunch. The Dunns agreed to help capture the gang in exchange for drop charges and a share of the reward money. Although Canton and the Dunns despised each other, the alliance offered a rare opportunity to infiltrate the Wild Bunch's elusive network. On the lawless frontier, outlaws often vanished into obscurity, using aliases, hiding in ghost towns, or fleeing to remote territories, while lawmen like Bass Reeves, renowned for his skill and resilience, collected bounties through official channels. Private citizens such as the Dunn brothers occasionally stepped in, motivated by greed or survival. These early bounty hunters were not romanticized drifters, but individuals with personal stakes, compelled to betray their own kind for a chance at redemption or riches. In this unforgiving world, alliances like Canton's with the Dunns blurred the lines between justice and survival, adding to the legend of the Wild West. The expansion of the United States westward was marked by waves of settlers, fueled by land purchases, annexations, and the forced removal of indigenous peoples. By the mid-19th century, Despite the rapid spread of U.S. settlements, large swaths of the Central Plains remained under the control of decentralized indigenous nations. Yet, as settlers encroached on treaty lands in search of wealth from minerals and farmland, tensions mounted. Strained by disease, malnutrition, and relentless conflict, indigenous populations were decimated, from several million before European contact to only 250,000 by the late 19th century, compared to the burgeoning non-indigenous population of 75 million. Under increasing pressure, U.S. officials coerced conciliatory tribal leaders into signing away land rights while waging war against those who resisted. Whether allies like the Nez Perce and Osage or stalwart defenders like the Comanche and Lakota, indigenous peoples were systematically displaced, herded onto reservations that were often impoverished and poorly maintained. By the 1890s, this legacy of forced removal culminated in the Oklahoma Territory, a patchwork settlement riddled with lawlessness. Although originally designated for displaced tribes, the Dawes Act of 1887 stripped indigenous nations of even their reserved lands, reallocating plots to individual households and opening vast tracts to settlers. During land rushes, settlers scrambled to stake claims, transforming the frontier into a chaotic mix of tents, saloons, and nascent towns. The dream of a self-sufficient homestead attracted not only male citizens, but also immigrants, women, and formerly enslaved individuals. Yet the frontier was fraught with challenges: disputes over land titles, rampant crime, and a culture steeped in violence. The American West harbored one of the most heavily armed civilian populations in the world, where drunken shootouts and vigilante justice were common. Amid this chaos, the West began to change. Railroads crisscrossed the plains, steel wires hummed with telegraph messages, and the discovery of oil signaled the rise of industrial magnates like Carnegie and Rockefeller. The corporate dominance of cattle companies edged out independent cowboys, and the idyllic vision of frontier life began to fade. Outlaws like Bill Doolin and his Wild Bunch emerged as symbols of resistance against the encroaching corporate hegemony. Doolin skillfully courted public sympathy, sharing stolen wealth with struggling settlers and earning the loyalty of townsfolk, who often warned him of approaching lawmen. Yet beneath this facade, the Wild Bunch were ruthless criminals. In early 1895, the gang ventured onto reservation land to steal horses from the Muscogee Nation, sparking a fierce firefight with indigenous residents. The gang scattered, and U.S. Marshals tracked down one member, Tulsa Jack, killing him in the pursuit. Lawmen like Frank Canton, however, struggled to compete with the legendary three guardsmen, Heck Thomas, Bill Tillman, and Chris Madsen, who were celebrated for their relentless pursuit of justice. These marshals captured or killed hundreds of outlaws, overshadowing Canton's efforts. Meanwhile, Canton's uneasy alliance with the Dunn brothers, former cattle rustlers turned bounty hunters, led to betrayal. The Dunns ambushed Wild Bunch members Bitter Creek Newcomb and Charlie Pierce, shooting them under dubious circumstances and delivering their bodies to Marshal Nix for the bounty. Canton, arriving too late, noted inconsistencies. In the Dunn story, wounds suggested the outlaws were executed in their sleep. While such actions skirted legality, authorities often turn a blind eye, prioritizing results over due process. The Dunns pocketed the reward money and gained powerful allies by joining the Guardsmen's posse, leaving Canton embittered. His frustrations grew as rivalries among bounty hunters and lawmen intensified, fueled by lucrative rewards from companies like Wells Fargo. Canton's own history as a hired gun for monopolistic cattle associations in Wyoming, where he was implicated in extra-legal killings during the Johnson County War, reflected the murky ethics of frontier justice. Despite his skills as a lawman, Canton found himself sidelined, relegated to minor arrests while others claimed the glory. By 1896, the Wild Bunch was on the verge of collapse. Notorious members were hunted down one by one, including leader Bill Doolin, who was captured by Tillman. The era of the Wild West outlaws was drawing to a close, replaced by the relentless march of modernization and the tightening grip of industrial and governmental power. Yet the legacy of violence, betrayal, and the pursuit of justice, or vengeance, remained etched in the frontier's turbulent history. In March, Redbuck Whiteman was gunned down by officers, and a few months later, Texas Marshals captured Dynamite Dick Clifton, locking him up alongside Bill Doolin. But within 2 weeks, both men escaped, and Doolin, feared leader of the Wild Bunch, was back on the loose. By late summer, the Dunn brothers caught wind of his whereabouts, a house where Doolin's wife was staying. On the night of August 26th, a posse that included Heck Thomas, for Dunn brothers, and others surrounded the property. As Doolin led a horse from the stable, they shouted for him to surrender. The outlaw reportedly fired first, but it was Thomas's shotgun blast that ended his reign. The $1,400 bounty was divided among the posse, marking the end of Bill Doolin's notorious gang. Like so many outlaws before them, they met their fate in a storm of bullets or languished in jail, awaiting execution. Frank Canton, however, harbored a deep grudge against the Dunn brothers. He viewed them as criminals who had betrayed their alliance and deprived him of his share of the bounty. Canton revived old cattle rustling charges against B. Dunn, securing a warrant for his arrest. Meanwhile, the Dunn brothers leveraged their new status as Special Deputy U.S. Marshals to build power with B. Dunn openly flaunting his authority. The tension between Canton and Dunn came to a head in the fall of 1896. On a dusty afternoon in Pawnee, B. Dunn confronted Canton on the street. With a hand resting on his revolver, Dunn made his intentions clear, declaring they had a score to settle. What followed became the stuff of legend. Canton, known for his quick draw, shot Dunn through the eyebrow, killing him instantly. Canton claimed self-defense and was exonerated, but tales of the encounter took on a life of their own. Some said Dunn's gun caught on his suspenders before he could fire. Others whispered that he wore a steel breastplate, though it was of no use against Canton's aim. As the Wild West faded into history, its myths grew larger. Reenactments, dime novels, and traveling Wild West shows immortalized figures like Canton, blending truth with fiction. By the late 1890s, outlaw gangs were all but eradicated, and the frontier was transforming. Even Canton's time in Oklahoma Territory came to an end. Drawn by the Klondike Gold Rush, he sought a deputy marshal commission in Alaska, where he hunted criminals along the Yukon River and mingled with prospectors in frozen boom towns. Yet, the lines between law and lawlessness blurred as they had on the plains. Canton, a man tasked with bringing outlaws to justice, harbored a secret. He was once an outlaw himself. Frank Canton never truly existed. He was the alias of escaped outlaw Joe Horner, who had once terrorized Texas before vanishing after a daring prison escape in 1879. Years later, Horner secured a pardon from the Texas governor under his false identity, allowing him to continue his second life as a lawman. Ironically, the man who hunted killers and thieves had been both, and had managed to evade the justice he so zealously pursued. Canton's story became another chapter in the complex, myth-filled saga of the American West, where heroes and villains often shared the same face, separated only by the shifting dust of history. Thank you for watching the video until the end. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss any new videos from us. What do you think about today's topic? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found the video helpful, feel free to share it with your friends and family. We hope you had a great time. See you in the next video with even more exciting content. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out.